You gotta do the...
What are you doing? What are you doing?
That's the problem, man. Do a macho man.
This is what I'm doing.
Do a macho man.
No.
Do the...
Oh, you dig it. I'm getting lightheaded now. Can we start the show? All right. Can we start the show?
Let's do it.
All right, no voice. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode, see if we get this right this time, 5 of TTS Talk.
That's right.
We're filming this back to back because I'm going to be on the West Coast next week, so we had to do back to back episodes.
And I'm going to be on the East Coast.
He's still going to be here. Creepy as ever.
Awesome.
So I'm losing my voice a little bit, so bear with me. I apologize.
That's all right.
But guys, welcome to episode number 5 of TTS Talk. And today we want to talk about something. Man, my voice is really shot, huh?
Yeah, that was weird. It's Kevin and Nora.
It's a fucking macho man.
We're doing. Coach, today we're going to talk about, I help him out here a little bit, pulling. All right, and how beneficial it is to pull twice as much as you pull in your program.
So let's talk about the mistakes that a lot of people make, and the reason that one of the most common injuries that you're gonna hear about are shoulder injuries, right? Like the shoulder's a vulnerable joint, and there's a lot of people out there who suffer from some type of shoulder injury, one way or another, right?
Sometimes it'll happen early.
Right.
People start getting strength training because they're not pulling as often.
Right. So how do you protect your shoulders, right? So what do we do in training that's going to improve the health of our shoulders, right? So we can talk about improving shoulder mobility, which for some people that of course is important, but some people already have great mobility, right? But a common mistake made in training is that most people will do a lot more pressing than they do pulling. So what happens is you develop an imbalance where now you're pressing all the time. In life, you shake somebody's hand, you open a door, you're living here. You push somebody, if you're playing a sport, it's here. So rarely are you doing pulling. So now you have this huge imbalance between the anterior and posterior sides of the body. So now the shoulder is imbalanced, right? And that sets us up for injury. Okay.
Balance is key too, Coach, and you're touching up on it, anterior, posterior chain. Like, balance is key for the body, all right? You can't have one stronger than the other, using one side more than the other.
No doubt, and that's what's gonna keep you healthy and safe. So, how much pulling is enough pulling, right? So, as Ruben mentioned earlier, you mentioned you wanna pull twice as much as you push, right? And the reason is, because what I just said, you're living here. Your most day-to-day life, you're here on the anterior side, and then you come in and you press. So you want to pull twice as much as you push. Okay, that's step 1 for keeping the shoulders healthy, and not only keeping the shoulders healthy, but developing the upper back, which is going to add pounds of muscle to your frame from head to toe, or on your upper back, so in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Coach, when you say as an example for someone that's maybe watching, looking at a program, how would that work? How would you explain to them how would that work?
Yeah, so
wise, rep wise.
Well, first I want to specify that when we say pull twice as much as you push, we're talking specifically horizontal pulling, right? Vertical pulling is important too, but we're going to get to that later. Okay, so just remind me of that. It's your responsibility.
Gotcha.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, what was your question about?
So, let's say for someone that's asking with the training program, how would they program it to have pulling twice as much as they push? Like an example, set.
So like a simple thing would be if you're doing 3 sets of 10 of a press, make sure you're doing 3 sets of 20, right, of a pull. Or you could increase the amount of sets, right? There's different ways that you can do it.
Like add accessory work of more pulling.
Yeah, right? Exactly, right. So, or if you look at, the most important thing is when you look at your training week, like let's just say you're training 3 days a week, and over the course of those 3 days, you're doing 6 sets of pressing. Make sure you're doing 12 sets of pulling if you're keeping the same rep range, right?
Great way to keep track of it, yeah.
Right. So now, there's a lot of people, you see them doing rowing, you're seeing people doing rows, right? But a lot of people aren't doing proper technique, right? So the biggest mistake, as usual, is people are going too heavy, right? So just remember, if you're doing a cable row, the idea here, we don't have to do an actual cable row to demonstrate, but am I in the screen here? So most people, when they do a cable row, they're going too heavy, so they can't really retract the scapula. Because what you want here is full scapular protraction and then full retraction. Most people go so heavy that they cannot actually retract the scapula. It ends up being this. So they're going so heavy that the exercise is now here, and there's not much of an emphasis on the upper back.
And to touch up on that, sometimes the starting point right from the get-go, they don't have maintained a neutral spine, you're not upside, the chest is up, right away they're set up for disaster.
Right. So you have to make sure you're using an appropriate weight where you could get that full protraction and that full retraction. Like Ruben was just saying, when you're doing a cable row, another common mistake is either the spine is rounded and flexed and you're in this position, or people tend to hyperextend, and now you're putting a ton of stress and you're leaning back too far and you're doing this, right? And that's putting a lot of stress on the spine. Keep the torso at a position where you're neutral, but you're hinged slightly forward, and now you could fully retract and protract without putting all that excess stress on your spine. So there should be a very slight forward lean with the flexed abs so you can maintain that position, and now we could go through that movement appropriately. And one thing that I'll say is to change the angle of your hands on a cable row, right? I would say, I mean, what we do here, you could do a pronated grip, you could do a supinated grip, okay, but just know that the supinated grip is gonna put a little bit more of an emphasis on the lats, but you can still work that in, change the angle. A neutral grip, here we have semi-pronated and semi-supinated for those with shoulder or elbow issues. What else would you want to add in there, Coach?
Well, I got two things, and we're doing an isometric hold, to kind of really, so they really feel using your back. So we're talking about an isometric hold, as Coach was talking, pulling and holding for a good second, maybe even two, sometimes maybe three. Releasing out, so you really feel
focus on that contraction work, right?
And really feel your back squeeze together, feel your shoulder blades squeeze together. Another thing, a good thing to do is kind of with a training partner, have them tell them, like, ask me, how's my spine look? How do I look? Or even video yourself. It's a great way to kind of coach yourself and see how you're looking and see if you're progressing or seeing if you're getting better, if you are upright or if you are using your back. Those are great ways to improve.
Shout out to our boy Manas, who always asks us to check his posture.
That's right, Manas.
Yeah, Manas. If you're listening, we love you, buddy.
It's good, too.
Good posture.
It's solid.
All right. So a cable row would be one example. There are tons of examples, but just to give you some staples here. A barbell bent over row, you could change the grip there, supinated, pronated, you're hinged at the hips, bent over, and now you're hitting a row from that angle.
And you would say, Coach, too, dominate or perfect as best you can the seated row before going to kind of look at it as an advanced movement? Or?
I wouldn't say look at it as an advanced movement, but understand, they would have to understand how to hinge properly and maintain a neutral spine before they get in there. Right. So now a one-arm dumbbell row on a bench is also one of my favorite exercises. Again, maintain that neutral spine. You don't want to be flexed. You don't want to be hyperextended. You want to be neutral there. What are some other favorites for you?
Incline dumbbell rows. So it takes away the stability factor of it.
Well, it takes away the stress on the lumbar spine and the lower back.
So you're able to really control the weight, really squeeze your shoulder blades back. I like them as a main move, but even as an accessory. So let's say you're a little fatigued, and sometimes that's when technique falters a little bit, you're a little tired. It's a great way to kind of really build a more back muscle and having good technique, proper positioning throughout. So,
I'm glad you brought that one up because with an incline or chest supported row where you're resting your chest on the bench and your head is hanging over, your feet are on the ground, like I just mentioned, if you have a lower back issue, say your back really gets tight on you or you have a hard time hinging, it's a nice row variation where you're not putting a ton of stress on the lower back. And to add to that, Another example would be if you're using dumbbells and you're hinging at the hips, like to do a bent over row.
Yeah.
If you kind of put your butt to a wall, it kind of alleviates a little bit of that stress that's placed on the lumbar spine and lower back. So that would be another variation of that as well.
And these are great variations. Don't let ego take over. You know, if you are feeling a little back pain, you know, don't just skip the day of training or, you know, go right through it and who cares about the pain. No, use these variations. You're hitting up the same muscle groups. You're getting stronger in a safe way to stay consistent and stay in the game longer.
Mm-hmm. And I would say working a lot more tempo. 2 on rows, a lot of people fly, right?
Quick,
so working some eccentric tempo, so you're working some control. Like we see that all the time when people are trying to do rows, they might just fly down and pay no mind to that eccentric component. Remember, those muscles, they're going to work eccentrically as well. So if you're doing a 1-arm row, a cable row, don't just let the weight pull you. It's going to pull you out of position and you're not getting the same training effect.
Control your reps.
Yeah, 2 to 3 second eccentric is great. And especially for rows, adding that isometric hold in, right? But also maybe controlling the concentric here too. So when the muscle's contracting and we're pulling back, instead of just doing that, 1, 2, place an emphasis on that upper back and squeeze, right?
He's moving there. He's concentrating on muscles being worked. It's a lot of mind-muscle connection involved with that. Think tension. More tension, more strength, more muscle being built. That's a big factor.
And then another way to add some more volume to the upper back, simple exercises that are great, band pull-aparts, and you got so many variations of those that you could use. Oh, definitely face pulls, one of my favorites, for sure. But then you get the YWTIs, Blackburns, stuff like that. Exercises that don't look like much.
I was going to say, if you don't know what that is, YouTube it now and try it.
They are the most humbling exercises out there because you could be jacked and strong as shit. And then you get these little 2.5-pound weights in your hand and you're screaming and burning like a son of a bitch. So adding in some more accessory work like that's going to help keep the shoulders healthy, right? It's going to add, and those little exercises, those are the ones.
They go a long way.
Well, they add a lot. You'd be shocked at how much muscle they can add. So if you're an advanced lifter and you start, because say you're already doing rows and this, you start working band pull-aparts, YWTIs, stuff like that you're going to start seeing a little bit more muscle on your shoulders, on your upper back, because they're bringing up the small muscles that aren't really being targeted when you're hitting the bigger lifts.
We've had clients here that, whether it be shoulder issues, and they were only able to pull for a couple weeks pain-free, and they were only pulling with the bands, and I saw significant change. And shout out to Wellington. All right,
Wellington.
I mean, he was just using bands. He was staying consistent.
He's a handsome son of a bitch.
He really is. Funny guy too. He had some movements with the bands, and he was just able to, he wanted to work everything pain-free. That's all we were doing. And a lot of it just instilled band work and a lot of pulling. And I will say after 3-4 weeks, he was doing it for a while. I'm like, oh. I mean, he developed some serious strength, and it literally was from band resistance, changing the tempo, adding isometric holds, controlling the eccentric, and all with the band, coach. And we saw some major improvement with him.
Right. And the one thing that I asked you to remind me earlier, you
vertical pull. Well, I was waiting until you finished. Man.
He has it in his mind, I know. But so with vertical pulling, right, we get a lot of lat work already, right? And a lot of guys are already internally rotated because of lat development. A lot of people like to do chin-ups and whatnot. So when you're programming, as we said, you want to pull twice as much as you push, and we specify that should be referring to horizontal pulling, right? So, but if say you're pulling twice as much as you push, vertical and horizontal, you should be doing twice as much horizontal pulling as you are vertical pulling, right? So let's just keep things simple. You're doing 2 sets of a press, right? And that means you would be doing 4 sets of pull. You would want to be doing twice as much horizontal pulling as you would be in the vertical pulling, in the vertical pull scheme. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and coach, explain to how, let's say you're doing a vertical pushing day with a vertical pulling day. How would you add that in?
Yeah, well, I would still do twice as much vertical pulling as I would vertical pressing, right? So if you're doing 3 sets of 6 on an overhead press, you're going to be doing 3 sets of 12 on a vertical pull. But then you'd be doing 3 sets of maybe 20 plus reps on a horizontal pull that day, right?
And that's something that could always be added as an accessory work as well.
Right, so just keep that in mind. You want to be you're doing a lot more pulling in your training than you really think. So if you're not doing much pulling, and again, if you're not doing it properly, that's one of the biggest changes you're going to have to make in your program. It's going to add more muscle to your frame, you're going to get bigger, and you're going to get stronger.
Yeah,
because
significantly stronger. And
right.
People, when they start pulling that much, they see the big difference.
Right, you talk to any power lifter about improving their bench press, they're going to tell you about getting your upper back strong, because now you got this big pad supporting you when you're pressing off of.
Plus, it looks badass in tank tops and
except but only if you shave your back, because if it's hairy like yours,
people can't know about that.
they already know, Coach. They've seen it out there. I've been telling you to shave that thing for years.
It's winter time. All right, guys. I'll wait till after.
It's like an extra coat.
Oh, come on.
It's not that bad. It's gross. Actually, the other day he took his shirt off.
It's really not that bad.
And a nickel fell out of the hair that was on his back.
But it was shredded, though. It looked great. Well, all right, back to pulling.
Yeah. So, but guys, if you just take that one piece and you start to incorporate that into your training, you're going to see a huge difference in your physique, in your strength, and in your shoulder health.
Yes.
So if you have some shoulder pain, depending on what the issue is, like we have to really know. But just generally speaking, most people, they get these overuse injuries from pressing, and not incorporating enough pulling. So incorporating more pulling into your routine is going to be a game changer.
Yeah, and to add to that, Coach, remember, control your reps. Mind-muscle connection, realize what muscle groups are working.
Low protraction, retraction, focused on the movement.
And change up the tempo. I'm a really big fan of the isometric hold, so you really kind of dial in on your back and having the movement quality down.
All right.
Yeah.
Guys, I hope this helps. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop a comment below. You okay?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it might look cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Drop a comment below, or you could shoot us a DM on Instagram. I am at Chris_Tutela. Rube, where can these guys find you?
You can DM me, guys. I am at _Ruben, RUBEN_Borges, BORGES. Ask me anything, guys. I'm always excited to answer.
Yeah, head over to ChrisTutela.com to check out some more articles. You can find a lot of free information over there. Also, shoot me an email, chris@tutelatraining.com for any of your questions. And again, we always ask if you guys could please just click the share button or text this episode over to a friend or a family member, because it's the only way that we could grow the show and really reach and help more people.
Let's keep it going, right?
All right, guys. Until next time, we will catch you next week on another episode of
TTS Talk.
That was whack.
I know, but the screaming thing wasn't working, so I wanted to try that
Yeah,
one.
how about somewhere in between?
All right, ready? Do it again.
On another episode of
TTS Talk.
Ew, man, you sound like Maury Povich.
Maury Povich.
We'll catch you next week on
We'll catch
another
you next week,
episode
guys.
of TTS Talk.
All right, catch you later.
Peace. All right, come over here.
No, you're not, Chris. You're not slapping me.
Just like a funny slap, not a hard slap.
But then I slap you. Yeah, then I gotta slap
All right,
you.
let's play slap for slap then.
No, man. Come on, man.
Not hard.
No, because you think this is funny.
I'm just gonna go, okay? Ready?
Chris, don't slap me
I
hard.
swear,
No,
my guys.
No. Then I gotta slap you.
I'm not. You ready?
Chris, don't hurt me. My face. I need it.
Wait, which side's the bad tooth?
Just. Oh yeah. Bad.
No, which side is it?
This side, actually.
Okay.
Both sides.
All right, I'm gonna go to the other side. Ready?
Oh.
Let me take this off.
What the fuck is going on?
Are you ready?
Soft, Chris. Soft.
Soft.
I'll punch you in the dick. You know what? Yeah.
Well, what kind? It's gonna be a nice little slap.
Ooh.
Right. Don't do it. Not as hard. Go this side. This side.
Why that side?
Because I have
right.
my jaw hurts.
I felt bad.
That's not bad. Do it again.
No, I don't even know
Ready?
why.
Come on, you punch me.
Let me do it harder.
Ooh.
Alright. Shut this off. Hold this up.
That's good. I'm done.
Not playing slap.
I will slap you.